He didn't inherit it. He built it from nothing. A single man who started in a wooden office in Cleveland ended up controlling more money than most countries. His name became a synonym for power itself, whispered in boardrooms, studied by governments, feared by rivals. But what if I told you that John D. Rockefeller didn't just find oil? He discovered a formula, a repeatable system for turning scarcity into control and control into endless wealth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was design. A formula so effective that it still shapes how global corporations, and even governments, build wealth today. Yet very few people actually understand how it worked. The story you're about to hear isn't about oil. It's about the machinery of ambition, the psychology of control, and how one man quietly rewired the rules of capitalism. Welcome to Empire Economics, where history reveals the hidden codes of money and power. Picture this. Cleveland, Ohio, February 1872. The city's skyline is black with smoke from 26 oil refineries, each one fighting desperately for survival in what seemed like an endless war of falling prices and brutal competition. The smell of crude oil hangs thick in the winter air. Business owners pace their offices, watching profits disappear as fast as the oil they refine. Most of them have no idea they're about to witness one of the most ruthless business campaigns in American history. In just 6 weeks, 22 of those 26 refineries will vanish. Not through bankruptcy, not through market collapse, through the calculated precision of a 32-year-old man who understood something his competitors didn't. John D. Rockefeller had discovered a hidden formula that would reshape not just the oil industry, but the entire concept of business itself. Everyone thinks they know the Rockefeller story. The man who became America's first billionaire. The oil baron who built Standard Oil into a monopoly so powerful the government had to break it apart. But that surface narrative misses the deeper truth. Rockefeller didn't succeed because he was lucky, or because he was born into wealth, or because he stumbled upon oil at the right moment. He succeeded because he cracked a code that most business leaders still don't understand today. A systematic approach to building empire that had nothing to do with charisma or connections, and everything to do with mathematical precision applied to human behavior. The year was 1870 when Rockefeller made a decision that would echo through history. While his competitors focused on finding more oil or building bigger refineries, he was studying something entirely different. Numbers. Not just his own numbers, but the numbers that governed the entire industry. He kept a handwritten log of every cost, every expense, every transaction, down to the last decimal point. His competitors thought this was obsessive. They had no idea it was strategic genius. What Rockefeller understood was that business wasn't about producing the most oil, it was about controlling the most efficient system for getting oil from the ground to the customer. And efficiency wasn't just about having better equipment or smarter workers. It was about eliminating every form of waste, every unnecessary middleman, every redundant process that stood between raw materials and profit. But here's where the story gets interesting. Most business leaders, even today, think efficiency means cutting costs. Rockefeller thought differently. He realized that true efficiency meant controlling the entire process from beginning to end. Not just refining oil, but owning the wells that produced it. Not just selling oil, but owning the barrels it was shipped in. Not just transporting oil, but owning the railroads and pipelines that carried it across the country. This wasn't just vertical integration. This was something deeper. Rockefeller had discovered that in any industry, there are invisible leverage points where small changes create massive results. He found these points by doing something his competitors never bothered with. He studied the numbers until he could see patterns they couldn't see. He tracked costs so precisely that he knew exactly where every penny was being lost or gained. And then he used that knowledge to make moves that seemed impossible to everyone else. The Cleveland massacre wasn't random violence, it was mathematical warfare. Rockefeller had calculated exactly how much pressure stand before they broke each of his competitors could with. He knew their debt levels, their cash flow, their monthly expenses. He knew which ones were desperate and which ones were merely struggling, and he used that knowledge to make offers they couldn't refuse. not because he was threatening them, but because he was offering them escape from a game they were already losing. What happened next would reshape American business forever. Standard Oil didn't just buy companies, it absorbed them into a system so efficient that competition became nearly impossible. When other refineries used 40 drops of solder to seal kerosene cans, Rockefeller's engineers discovered that 39 drops worked just as well. That single drop saved Standard Oil thousands of dollars annually. When competitors threw away 60% of their oil because they only wanted the kerosene, Rockefeller found ways to profit from every byproduct. Gasoline became fuel for his refineries. Petroleum jelly became a consumer product. Even the waste tar was sold for paving roads. But the real formula wasn't about oil at all. It was about understanding that every industry has hidden as normal. Rockefeller did inefficiencies that most people accept normal. He questioned every process and systematically eliminated every source, every assumption, measure of waste, until his operation ran like a machine designed by someone who understood exactly how money flows through complex systems. This approach extended far beyond the refinery floor. While his competitors hired managers based on loyalty or connections, Rockefeller created committees of specialists who could analyze performance across all his operations. He published internal performance figures that turned his own subsidiaries into competitors against each other, constantly pushing for better results. He built a culture where improvement wasn't just encouraged, it was mathematically measured and rewarded. The most remarkable part wasn't the wealth he accumulated. It was how he accumulated it while working at what most people would consider a leisurely pace. Rockefeller took daily naps after lunch. He spent afternoons gardening. He maintained strict work-life boundaries that would seem impossible for someone building an empire. But that's exactly the point. His system was so efficient that it didn't require him to work harder than his competitors. It required him to work smarter. By the early 1880s, something extraordinary was happening. While newspapers across America screamed about the oil monopoly and politicians demanded investigations, Rockefeller was quietly implementing the next phase of his formula. He wasn't content to simply control refining. He was building something that had never existed before in American business, a completely integrated system where every component fed efficiency into every other component. Picture walking through one of his refineries in those days. You'd see workers sorting through factory sweepings, collecting tin shavings and drops of solder that other companies would have swept into the trash. You'd watch engineers testing whether 38 drops of solder might work instead of 39. You'd witness coopers crafting barrels from lumber that came from Rockefeller's own forests, dried in kilns he built on site to reduce shipping weight. Every detail had been analyzed, optimized, and integrated into a system that squeezed profit from places his competitors never thought to look. But the real genius wasn't in the details. It was in how those details connected to create what economists now call network effects. Each efficiency improvement didn't just save money in one area. It created savings that cascaded through the entire operation. When Rockefeller reduced the iron used in barrel hoops, he wasn't just saving on iron costs. He was reducing shipping weight, which lowered transportation costs, which allowed him to offer lower prices, which drove more volume, which gave him greater leverage with suppliers, which led to even lower costs. His competitors couldn't match this because they were still thinking like individual businesses competing against each other. Rockefeller had created something different, a business ecosystem where competition became increasingly impossible, not because he was cheating, but because he had fundamentally changed the mathematics of the industry. The transformation extended far beyond oil. By the mid-1880s, Rockefeller was applying his formula to transportation, acquiring, negotiating railroad pipelines and deals that his competitors couldn't access. He moved into marketing, creating branded kerosene products that customers trusted. He integrated backward into oil production, buying wells and drilling operations. Each move followed the same principle: identify the leverage points where small changes create disproportionate results. What made this strategy particularly devastating for his competitors was its compounding nature. Traditional businesses grow linearly. You sell more, you make more. But Rockefeller had built a system that grew exponentially. Each new efficiency improvement amplified the benefits of every previous improvement. Each new acquisition didn't just add capacity, it added leverage that made the entire operation more dominant. That was Rockefeller's hidden formula. Not just vertical integration or cost cutting, but systematic thinking applied to entire industries. He didn't just build a company. He engineered a new form of economic power that transformed American business forever. The lesson isn't about oil, it's about seeing systems others can't see.